Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, WeatherTech, Hum by Verizon, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek Podcast number 196, our first podcast of the 2019 year. I'm John Davis, and joining me today are writer-producer Brian Robinson.
Hello, John Davis.
And road test producer Ben Davis.
Hello. Quick shout out to my dad who never misses an episode of this. Dad, I love you, and thanks for exposing me to cars and trucks early when I was a kid and even to this day.
Very, very special. Thank you, Ben. Online content coordinator Greg Carlos.
That's me.
And over-the-edge reporter Zach Mescal.
Someone's cutting onions in here.
Oh, just John's not my dad, just for anybody.
Oh, just in case. Yeah.
That's a good clear up.
Wait, what?
Thank you about that. You've disowned me already, son of mine. All right. We're going to get a viewer question during the show. We have a lightning round about trucks. I've actually got a rave today that I want to get to. First, though, the vehicles that we've been in and around our office most recently, or we've been to their previews. We're going to start off with the new generation 2019 BMW 3 Series. Zach, you're the one that's been closest to us. The 330i and the M340i model. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, first time in Lisbon, Portugal. Been to Europe a few times, but we went out there for the all-new 3 Series. We started off in the 330i. That's your entry-level 3 Series. And then we wound up in the 340i once we got to the racetrack. It's got more road feel than before. It's longer. It's got a wider track. But the chassis feels very tossable. It's very nimble. And I really had a lot of fun driving it. And bad news, there's no manual. But, it's...
Not even in Europe, right?
Europe, I think
they
they will be offering.
And they probably have a diesel, too, I expect.
Yeah.
What about size? Has it grown more again?
It has, but it's lost weight.
Okay.
But like I said, the chassis, it's awesome. I mean, I kept getting the thing sideways, and it was a blast to drive. The 330 on the street, it was enough power. But, my driving partner and I were both craving more. 255 horsepower for the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo.
We're always harping about steering feel.
It's gotten better.
Okay.
I mean, the last couple that we drove at the track, I wasn't a big fan, but it's definitely there this time. It's the 340, that power delivery is 382 horsepower, and let's keep in mind that these are evolutions of the old 2-liter and 3-liter turbo, 3-liter turbo 6. But the power delivery is great. The transmission shifts super smooth. The interior is so good looking. It's money. Absolutely love it. Analog dash is gone. Now it's just a screen. And one of the cool things was the tachometer. It's on the right side still, but it's counterclockwise the way that it goes up and down. And the engineers told me that was for to clear up more room within the dash so that you can have more notifications there and stuff like that. It actually looked quite at home. When I first got in it, I was kind of looking at it and I wasn't immediately like, hey, this is out of place. It was almost like I had seen it before.
Well, there have been cars in the past that had the speedo clockwise and the tack counterclockwise, but I couldn't tell you which ones. But I can remember we've had some in the office over the years. But that is kind of a throwback.
Yeah, that's cool.
Anybody else? We've all seen the photographs and read the specs of it. These days, what does M mean anymore? I mean, now they've tacked it on basically just their 6-cylinder model. Is it anything extra?
The M340, it's just the tweener model between the base and the full-on M. Yeah.
But is it really that? I mean, they've taken basically the upgrade, the 6-cylinder, and there is no 6-cylinder without the M. So does it really get more, or is it just a way of model designation?
Yeah, it comes with different wheels and tires, different suspension,
That's
options,
more
everything.
like the M.
Yeah,
So
it's just a tweener model. Yeah.
in a way, I applaud them for kind of decluttering because they had so many models before. Now it's a lot more straightforward.
But you can still get M Sport packages on your 330, right? Which that muddies up the water. But, well, whatever.
But they'll sell a lot more 330s than they will 340s, probably. All right, let's move on to our second car, the 2019 Audi RS3. We were a little late getting in this car, but I have to say, once you did get in it, it was worth the wait. Really an amazing little sedan, in my opinion.
Yeah, it shares the MQB platform with every other small Volkswagen. Closely resembles the TT RS the most, which everyone loved that we had that in. Basically, slightly longer wheelbase four-door version of the TT RS, if you look at it that way.
Go ahead.
I always like the idea of a TT more than I actually like the execution of it, but the RS3 is kind of like
it's like a good-looking TT.
I like four doors.
Yeah.
That's just how I am. This was a blast to drive. Had it for the weekend. It's snarly. You find yourself like constantly staying in dynamic mode and making sure the exhaust baffles are open. Ton of fun to drive on the weekend. If I had to complain about one thing, and this is kind of with all Audis, if you're into paddle shifters, you will not be into these paddle shifters because they're just like plasticky and they don't feel good, it's ironic because the Porsche has such great paddle shifters.
Same company.
And an Audi just has terrible paddles.
Yeah, it was the most fun Audi that I've driven short of an R8 that I can remember. You know, sometimes you get in them and they seem almost over-teched. This car sounded great, felt great. You felt like you were wearing it a bit. So it's not the biggest car in the world. But what fun. Sure. But it is $56,000 too.
What do you think, Ben?
I love the 5-cylinder engine and the exhaust, just big barks. I mean, it's great to drive. You guys covered everything on it. Handling,
do you think it could have been a little bit louder?
I thought it was you could always go louder in the aftermarket, but for something you could buy off the showroom floor, I thought it was just right.
It was the noise it makes when the engine's basically, up and down shifting, the barking and all that sort of made up for that. It was like the car just spoke to you a lot.
Yeah, and then when you settle things down and you want to just cruise, it gets virtually quiet. So, there's no droning or anything you got to put up with.
I'm really not sure who out there is going to spend $56,000 for something that small. But I have to tell you, if I had a big garage and a lot of money, I would buy one just to have something to entertain me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the base
was
price.
Closer to 70, wasn't
Probably
it?
add 10 grand to 56.
The last vehicle we're going to talk about today is one that's been 8 years in coming, the 2019 Ford Ranger. It's back. It's being made in America. It's the same basic truck that's been made around the world since 2010, but updated, obviously. Brian, you've had a chance to drive it. Why don't you fill us in?
Absolutely. It is the Australian-built Ranger. Based on that, they said they've changed things up significantly for our market. Most of the body panels are unique. Engine is the Mustang's 2.3 liter. Which puts out 270 horses. Not as much torque as the Mustang, but plenty enough to tow 7,500 pounds.
Which is a best in class.
Yeah, right? And no V6, which, a lot of people were, upset about, but making noise about. But, they're
Don't you
Turbo
think that's
4,
coming?
I don't know. I'm not sure because their philosophy is their Turbo 4 puts out more power than anybody else's Gas 6 and gets better fuel economy than anybody else's 4, so they think they have the perfect engine. Definitely no diesel or anything like that. It's a tough little truck. I put the ride quality kind of in between the Chevy and the Tacoma, being on the rough side. It drives pretty nice. Probably most impressive was the powertrain. The 10-speed automatic is the only transmission you can get, and it worked really well with that engine. Probably the best 10-speed application I've driven yet. Smooth in operation, and also I think the turbo helps it, like coming out of corners, feeding in a little extra power so it doesn't have to downshift to half a dozen gears to get you going. But all in all, a ton of people have been asking me about it, so there's a lot of excitement out there about it, and I think they'll sell a ton of them.
Well, there's a lot of Ranger owners, including myself, that have been waiting for this for a long time. And even though it's a little bit bigger,
bigger,
than maybe, for instance, it's nice to have a small pickup truck around your house, something that doesn't take up a huge amount of space. It's still, I don't know if it's too big or not until we actually have a chance to use it. But it's a nice looking truck.
It is big. If you're looking for something the size of your last Ranger, you're out of luck.
That's gone. Yeah. There's anything.
You were on the launch. Did they talk at all about sales? Like, could they see it potentially taking some sales from F-150? Maybe keeping people in-house, but somebody who wanted a Ranger in the last couple of years had to go up to
that's the major reason they always said that they weren't building one, a smaller truck, is that they thought it would cannibalize sales.
Yeah, absolutely. It will take some from the F-150, but they're just happy to have them in the Ford family. I think for a while they were nervous about, Chevy was getting awful close to taking them off for the number one truck there, but I think they're far enough ahead now that they're not really worried about losing that, and they're just happy to sell people a Ford.
No, the numbers are still not out yet, but not sure Chevy's even going to be number 2 anymore. Yeah. Anybody else on the Ranger? It's a lot of interest. We'll have one in here at the shop pretty soon, and I for one, looking forward to it.
Was there any word on the Ranger Raptor yet?
They still say they're not going to sell it here, although there's already spy shots of it.
Yeah.
They're going to be selling it at least in Australia. I don't know why they wouldn't bring it here. I'm sure they're kind of holding on to that to make a big splash at some point.
They don't want to basically have people waiting.
Yeah, that's true.
And tell us about the off-road package.
A lot of the terrain select stuff and off-road terrain management is the same stuff that's in the Raptor. Obviously, it doesn't have the ground clearance or any additional power or anything like that, but I'm sure it will happen at some point.
Four-wheel drive is quite a step up in price, right?
I was surprised by that. Yeah, $4,000 if you want four-wheel drive. Yeah. And it's odd because there's no, you can't tell any difference in exterior appearance between 2 and 4-wheel drive. Unlike some, the Tacoma has that two-wheel drive version that it's tiny compared to the 4-wheel drive version. But
they didn't no extra height or anything.
No, they both look the same. Everything comes with a tow hitch. You can obviously upgrade to a tow package if you want to tow max towing. But it's a good truck for sure.
Front bumper,
they made a big deal about it being all steel. A lot of
that's on all of them.
Yep, all of them have a full steel bumper, which some of them have a lot of plastic on them. So when you get into off-roading, you start breaking stuff. But I don't know if that's a big deal to a lot of people, but for some people, I imagine it will be.
I think it's another built Ford tough thing they'll probably hang their hat on. Lightning round. We're going to give each of us about 30 seconds to talk in a trending topic. And here we go. Recently, a MotorWeek retro review, which Ben Davis, no relation, is responsible for, of a 1990 Chevy 454 SS pickup went viral, which got our staff thinking performance SUVs are more popular than ever. Is the performance truck due for a comeback?
Oh, yeah.
I think it already has in a lot of aspects.
I'll start it off. I say bring back two-door trucks in performance variants. It's super limited colors and powertrain options, and even radically change the sheet metal. I mean, take all the shape out of trucks that maybe not a lot of people like and bring a more slab-sided performance. Just, super exclusive. Not only
don't you think FCA, the Ram people, must have a couple of prototypes running around with,
they're due for a little
SRT
Express,
engine,
right?
Exactly.
Stacks on the sides, sticking way up to the sky. Yeah, bring it on. I even want to see some trademarking with some bands. I want a Metallica edition F-150, stuff like that. I want to see it.
Well, if gas stays around $2 a gallon, why not?
Guns N' Roses Silverado. Bring it on.
First burnout I ever saw on a truck was a Ford SVT Lightning. I love that thing, man.
That was a great truck.
And then I saw it in Fast and the Furious, and I was like, "What? What's that whining noise?" And
you worked for Harry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Slinging parts for Harry.
You were just fired.
But is NASCAR truck growing in popularity, or is that?
That's a good question.
That would be something that they could build on easily.
Yeah, somewhat. I'm not sure that's the market that would be. I think the drag racers would be more into the. If you're going back to the original SVT, I think part of it is everybody wants more of the off-road style, like the Raptor now, and also when that Lightning came out, there was nothing like that, and you couldn't get any big power in a pickup truck no matter where. Now even a regular F-150, you can get more power than what those Lightnings were putting out. So. I think it would be cool for sure to bring it back, but I'm not sure it's it would be as big of a deal as it was back when the Lightning came out.
Yeah, that Lightning though was so much more than just power. It was just a perfectly matched
It's awesome looking.
vehicle. He had great parts.
Does NASCAR run 4-door shells on their trucks?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, which no one even makes a regular cab.
I know.
Yeah,
But
hardly.
It's weird.
All right, let's move on to our viewer question.
Did you get your
Raymond.
30 seconds, Greg?
Everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't want to waste anybody's time.
You're not wasting anybody's
We
time.
want to hear what you have to
You
say.
wouldn't be here if that was the case.
I mean,
He was sitting
Come on,
there so
Robinson.
docile. I just sort of assumed he didn't have anything he wanted to say.
nobody
All right,
cares.
shoot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess define performance truck really, because there are performance trucks now. Like we already mentioned the Raptor, and the Ranger Raptor that might come. The Colorado Bison. These are, and like you said, they're off-road performance trucks, which I guess is what's in right now. But
It's because they just don't have a choice, man.
back to what you said, I mean, if there was ever a time for a performance street truck to come back, it's now. Cheap gas, and yeah, I mean,
And they've
I'm all
got the
for it.
powertrains. It's not like this would be really difficult.
Definitely.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay.
That's it. Everybody can go back to doing what they were doing.
All right, we're going to move on to Raymond from Dallas, who's got a viewer question. He was thanks for our show. Thank you for the comment, Raymond. I hope it runs forever. So do we. Hope I run forever. During the road test, you often drive in a rural setting with windy roads, farms, and wooden fences. I know MotorWeek is produced in Maryland, but where do you conduct your road test? It certainly is an attractive backdrop. I'm sure the great people of the state of Maryland would appreciate that.
We'll never tell.
Anybody want to answer, Raymond?
Without giving names of roads away, they are pretty much a stone's throw away from us here in Owings
We're
Mills.
very lucky.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. There's a lot of less traffic out there. You got to find roads that don't cast harsh shadows and shelter you from wind a lot of times. So there's a lot of roads that don't meet our criteria, unfortunately. And
That are very pretty.
yeah,
Yeah, we've had to go farther afield, as the years have gone on, just with traffic building up. I mean, we used to shoot tons of the driving stuff right in front of our building here years ago, but don't really do that anymore.
Yeah, we are in a suburb of Baltimore, and Baltimore is one of the areas where everything builds up along the feeder roads, but you get off them about a half a mile, and it's still pretty rural to the most part. And we're also lucky that we have some large horse farms around us, and the roads around those are ones we use.
Shout
But
out to Carroll County.
Yeah. But it is interesting. You can have a beautiful road with trees, and it's just gorgeous looking to your eye, but the camera hates it because of the shadows. So
It has,
Ben and his team have to be careful.
yeah, it's gotten a lot harder to find roads to shoot on, especially when we're out, because you'll notice sometimes that we're driving in Greene, Maryland in the first road test, and then all of a sudden we're in the deserts of Southern California when we're on these press events. And that's probably the most difficult time to do drive-bys, because not only are you on a time limit, but you're on roads you've never been on before. There's traffic sometimes. You got to work
Spend
around stuff.
hours sometimes.
Not to mention
Yeah.
that everywhere you shoot in California, they're asking to pull permits and everything like that. So
when searching for new roads, we hit Google Earth first to see what roads. You can see roads from Google Earth, and you can see if there's houses nearby, and you can also see trees where shadows may. If you're lucky enough to even get a good Google Earth shot during the midday, it'll show you where the shadows are if you're in the right season. So Google Earth, if you're looking for good roads, that's the best way to start.
and then it'll be CGI pretty soon for us.
Oh yeah, just
sit in the
feed
car.
it in, have it look like you're driving. But Raymond, we do drive the cars, we do test them. And by the way, you didn't really ask, but our test track is out near the Maryland city of Mount Airy. It's 7580 Dragway. It's an old strip that we continue to use and have been using it. Gosh, for over 30 years.
Emphasis on the old part.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
we're
is an
trying. We're
old
doing
track.
our best.
We're doing our best to keep it up. Thanks, Raymond, and thanks for the compliments. Before we end the show, there are two things I want to do. First, we didn't really plan on a rant and rave segment today, but I do want to give a rave out to Porsche because of a system they have developed for the new generation 911. It's called wet mode, and what it does, it's a safety system that actually anticipates when the car might start to hydroplane and does things like redirect torque and alters the driving mode systems to help compensate for basically drivers that don't have enough sense to slow down. Have you experienced it at all?
I know what you're talking about, and I was just laughing because my sister Allison, when she took her driver's test, was like obsessed with hydroplaning. I don't know why. She was just fascinated with it.
Once you do it once, it scares you so
super
bad.
scared of it, and like she just could not get past it. But anyway, this is the car for her. But yeah, they use this like wheel sensor inside the wheel well.
There are cameras inside the wheel wells that look at how much water is splashing out, and then it'll even lower some flaps to create to increase downforce. Apparently, it was something that Porsche and Mercedes and some other manufacturers developed many years ago as part of some project. Never did anything with it, and the chief designer behind the new 911 just thought it was time to bring it forward because he heard of some owner that got into real trouble. And I had never heard of this before. If this is successful, because so many tires are wide now and they basically are easy to hydroplane in, I can see that spreading to other vehicles. Really can.
Sure.
Anybody else got a rant and rave or anything they want to talk about? We have our final thing on today's show is to say goodbye to Zach Mescal.
So long.
Zach has been with us, 5 years?
5 years.
5 years.
Wow.
And, half a decade is a long time in television, and he's moving on to greener pastures. He's not we're not firing him on the air at all.
That would probably be funny.
It would.
We did something like that.
Memorable might be the right word. Yeah. No, we're going to really miss your insight. You've managed to do the most important thing you can do in the segments, your Over the Edge segments, and that is involve people, let them live vicariously through you. We've had so many people say how much they really enjoy because they couldn't experience these events firsthand, and they did it through you. It was a gift that you've given to a lot of viewers, and you should be very proud of that.
I appreciate that. Did you know that China landed on the dark side of the moon?
I saw it on the news this morning.
Isn't that nuts?
That's deep, man.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Pink Floyd. Yeah, I mean, this is the coolest job you could ever have, man. I mean, I've just always wanted to do. I've seen things, and I want to know how they work. I want to know how to drive them. So I drove the tank from the Fast and the Furious movie. I've driven a monster truck and jumped it, and my neck's still sore to this day. Went off-road with Land Rover across the country, trying not to touch pavement as much as possible. And I think one of the most funny things that ever happened was driving the Aventador S in Spain. It was Valencia, Spain, and we had no front tag, so the cops pulled us over. And all the cops wind up walking up to the car, and they're looking at it, and the one cop kind of points, asking if she can get in. I'm like, yeah, get in. So then the boss cop comes over, and he essentially pulls her out, and he waves his finger at her. He's like, no. And we were just sitting there cracking up. And then they wanted to tow the car because we weren't going to pay them on the spot.
Really?
Yeah, for no front tag. So that was funny. Yeah, man, exploring the world and fun cars, and it's been a blast.
And living to tell about it.
Yeah. The ice drifting was phenomenal. I mean, the Lamborghini ice drifting was phenomenal. There's just so many cool things you can do, but yeah, nothing but fun.
We're going to miss you.
Miss you guys.
And I think on that little somewhat somber note, we're going to wrap up this edition of our MotorWeek podcast, number 196. Thank you, Zach, one more time. It's been great having you with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Greg Carlos, Ben Davis, Brian Robinson, thank you all for joining us. And our hats off to David Wainwright, our audio engineer that always makes us sound terrific. And our podcast creator, Bob Mixter. And our producer, Joe Ligo, who is standing right over here. He's been silent today, but Joe's always basically makes sure that we know what we're talking about from one show to the next.
Thanks, Joe.
Get him, Joe.
And to everyone else, thanks very much for being a part of the MotorWeek family, for watching us on the Motor Trend Network, for basically being there for all the public TV stations that air us around the country. Till next time, I'm John Davis for all of us at MotorWeek. Thanks very much, and drive safely out there.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, WeatherTech, Hum by Verizon, RockAuto.com, and State Farm.